across all platforms. We're back here for season 2. I'm so excited to get this new season started. Total disclosure for anyone who doesn't know, we explore the mysteries of the unknown, from sightings to conspiracy theories, occurrences in our skies. It's all fair game, and something that we really enjoy building a community around. Last season, we ended with an interview with Mr. Daniel Sheehan, and it was such a phenomenal year of guests, and I figured that I wanted to come out pretty strong for season 2, and that's why I brought in my buddy, Mr. Marc D'Antonio, the chief video and photography expert at MUFON. You also do Sky Tour live stream as well on YouTube, and then you do that for KGR Radio as well. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm amazing. It's very, very good to have you back.
Thanks, man.
You appeared last season, and I took a month off. I filmed a movie, so we kind of got our bearings and our foundation on that. It's a lot more work than I think people think about, but that's while that was going on, this very interesting story kind of started developing about 7 stars that could potentially hold or be housing, I don't know how this would be framed, Dyson spheres. And it got me thinking about astronomy, and it got me thinking about you and having you back on, because I really want to talk about what are the chances that this could be the first glimpses at such a device, or even intelligent life in the universe, and any other astronomical discoveries that have been happening. I know that James Webb has been spitting images out left and right.
Absolutely.
So, and I really wish you got to go watch that episode with Joe Rogan and Terrence Howard. Because I would love to hear what you think about his theory.
I did watch the episode, but I didn't pay attention to, Terrence Howard's take on physics, because I was just thinking, unless he's someone that went to school for it and has a really good foundation, which he doesn't, I would have expected more from him. But he couldn't really lay it out, and Joe Rogan actually kind of disassembled him a little bit. So it was more entertainment than actual learning about new concepts. And then, of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson took a hold of Howard's thesis that he sent him.
Right.
And he took the time to mark it up and go through it very, very diligently, and did like a peer review, exactly so. And when he did it, he basically concluded with Terrence, no, Terrence, you are wrong, respectfully. Right. All right. And now Terrence Howard doesn't even talk to him. So it comes down to, like, an actor was insulted, and now he doesn't want to talk to someone. If you got an idea and it turns out to be wrong, you learn from it and move forward,
right.
with the new path that you learned. But Howard apparently didn't want to do that, according to Neil anyway. But,
yeah. Well, there's been a follow-up episode. It actually just came out with Terrence Howard, Eric Weinstein, and Joe Rogan. And Eric pretty much tells him that, like, all the physics elements, none of it makes sense. But he does point to his linchpin, and I can't go into the science. That's not my thing. But that episode, I would highly suggest as well to anyone out there. It's just fantastic. But he did give credit to Terrence with an idea, and he said that this is what you need to focus on. All the other stuff, the 1 × 1 = 2, and all your the things that you're trying to push on physics, like you're not as informed as you think you are. And I think that's fair. And I think it's a fair assessment for me as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I as I said, I'm not as familiar with Terrence Howard's thesis. I haven't read it. I did watch the initial Rogan episode because he said he was going to have him on there talking about this. I was like, okay, well, let's see what this is about. And as I listened to it, I just kept saying, no, that's not, how could that, no, that's not right. I mean, that's
Right.
elementary. And I began to feel that Terrence Howard knows more than thinks he does, and that he, unfortunately, he has that disease which says, if I know a little, I must know a lot. And he doesn't know a lot, unfortunately, and so he doesn't understand the fundamentals and the foundations for why things are what they are.
Right. And
It's like the people that say we never went to the moon. Okay, obviously we went to the moon. I actually lived through that era. I know about it. I had friends who worked in the space program. I knew people in the space program that actually worked on it. I was a kid at the time, frankly. Let's be fair. Okay. But I know that I met them later on in life, and I know that these people were real and that this was a real project.
yeah.
So, when people come along who were born, yesterday, they look at the history and they say, well, based on the history, I think that's all fake. I think Stanley Kubrick, you weren't even alive when Stanley Kubrick did this supposed thing. So what do you mean you're talking about? You don't know what was in his head. I actually know people that worked with Stanley Kubrick. In fact, one of them was a good friend of mine, Douglas Trumbull. Doug Trumbull, Academy Award winner, okay, he passed away, but Doug and I were working on a UFO detection system. And Doug worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey. He knew Kubrick like this. They were good friends. And so I've been years with Doug. For 10 years, we were actually working on projects together, including the UFO detection system.
Can you, I mean, I don't know if it's like still being developed. Can you tell me more about that?
Oh yeah. It's pretty well known. Doug called it UFOtog. He had a Humvee that he outfitted with telescopes and stuff that could zip around and look in the sky at things. And I came along and said, Doug, wait a minute. Why don't we make a platter that doesn't have any moving parts and that looks statically at the sky, captures data, and then transmits it to a central place? In fact, why don't we do this? Let's set them up in triads in 3-pointed a unit at each place, like say 2 miles from each other, and make them communicate with each other so that if one sees it, the other one can say, I see it or I don't see it. And if the three of them can agree they all see it, then it's something high in the atmospheres or whatever. And we can then triangulate its location exactly and get its exact speed and know all that data. But if it's something that only one thing sees, then it's local to that object.
Right.
A bug or an aircraft, kind of a thing. So if it's something farther away, low-flying aircraft, if it's something much farther away, then the three objects are going to be interested in it.
That's super. I think that is a fascinating idea. I think.
Yeah. And Avi Loeb at Harvard has the Galileo project, and I've offered a couple of my observatory sites to him for implementation of a Galileo system. And I've talked to his team. I've actually got remote observatories out in the desert. So I run them from Connecticut, where I'm living, and it's 2,600 miles away. I did it last night. I actually ran it last night. In fact, I was just using Photoshop, and if you don't mind me turning the camera, that's a photo we took last night. It doesn't really show well.
Wow.
But it's a beautiful nebula that's in the coming summer sky, and we acquired it in seconds. And I had people from all over the world watching. I had people from China, Australia, Chile, the United States, of course, Bulgaria, other places in Europe, and they're all watching from all over the world. And I'm a professional astronomer. That's what I went to school for. So this is like rolling off a log for me.
Right.
Understanding these nebulae. In fact, I just did a big post on this in Facebook. If anyone wants to see, I'll probably go to, I'll exit out too on X.
Battery. Renewable's Biomind. Introducing the ultimate cognitive enhancement solution, Biomind. Today's video is exclusively brought to you by our sponsor, Dentia Herbals. Unlock your brain's full potential with a powerful blend of 9 meticulously selected plants and mushrooms, each backed by peer-reviewed research for their cognitive boosting benefits and safety. Adentia Herbal's formula combines organic full-spectrum powders and potent standardized extracts, ensuring that you receive the optimal concentration of each ingredient's cognitive enhancing compound, carefully selecting the most desirable parts of each plant and mushroom to create a harmonious blend that supports your mental clarity and focus. But that's not all. They infuse each bottle with personal intention of improving the lives, the minds, and overall greatness of each of their customers. Because of their commitment to your well-being every step of the way, you're going to get an exclusive 25% off your order via www.adentiaherbals.com using our code TOTALDisclosure at checkout. All the links will be in the description or on the screen.
Tweeted out on X doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think it's a post. I think he calls it. It's just a post now. Yeah,
I'll post it on X. Yeah. So anyway, so that's one thing. I'm also in talks with another production company that wants to do another production, and this one will involve objects that are underwater, unknown submerged objects, and
USOs. Yeah.
Yeah, USOs, and I had the I guess the pleasure of experiencing one of those.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and that was on a U.S. submarine, and I was on there as a guest, not as a sailor. I later confirmed with someone down in Washington who was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I was working for them on a project, and he couldn't tell me anything about the project. He said, I can't talk about that project. I'm sorry. The project for tracking these things.
Yes.
So
the fast mover program.
Yes, exactly. So they observe and report. That's the rule. That's what they've been given. That's their directive. And the reason is because they can't possibly catch them. They can't possibly engage. These things have not engaged with them at all. They've just stayed at a distance, kind of play cat and mouse. So there's something there. What is it? Okay, let's go back. Okay, let's go back. Oh, go forward. Okay, go back. And they would just go anywhere they want, and they'd never get a certain closeness. And in terms of these objects on submarines, there's more than just the account I have been talking about for a decade. Okay.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off here.
No, you're right.
Strike me if I'm wrong, but
I will never strike you.
Were you or were you not in Darcy Ware's latest film?
Yeah, that was the film I was in with him. Yeah.
Right. So Tim Gaudet.
Yeah.
I always say
Admiral Gallaudet.
So he's been talking about these programs, and your story, kind of fits that whole puzzle of that fast mover program. And it was really interesting to see Darcy and all Tim or at the Admiral kind of go through it all and kind of because I think people don't realize that these things, they're not just in our skies. They're not just in the atmosphere and space. These things are they're transmedium. And the reason they can go there and do this, this comes to the next fundamental discussion that I have been giving around the country for a number of years now, and I've refined it. And it comes from my friend Robert Schroeder, who has a book called Solving the UFO Enigma. And Bob and I are good friends. And I talked to Bob about this and said, Bob, I read your book. It's full of equations, but the normal people aren't going to be able to capture that mentally. But I'd like to do it. I'd like to share it because I think you're onto something here. And he says, oh, please, yeah. So I have been. And you can't imagine the understanding after telling people this in language they can understand, how UFOs really work, in my opinion, and Bob's and other people's now, in Avi Loeb's, by the way. In telling people about this stuff, they've had light bulbs go off in their heads and say, it all makes sense now.
Now I understand why Earth could be visited by so many different potential civilizations. And the reason has to do with how they travel. And the reason why they can be underwater and just be there, constantly for years and not have to worry about the pressure. They don't have these massive hulls to withstand the pressure. And here's the weird thing I'm going to say. They're really neither there nor elsewhere. They're there, but not there. And whoa, what does that mean? They're interdimensional. Okay. And this goes to string theory. If you want to dive into this, we can talk about it.
I would like you to.
Okay. And we have to go all the way back to what potential universe given capabilities do these creatures use to travel? And we go back to the 4 fundamental forces. We have the strong nuclear force, we have the weak nuclear force, we have light, and we have gravity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, these strong, weak, and electromagnetic, those we understand, but gravity's that little weirdo. That's the outlier. Okay, light. Okay, sorry. Yes, light, weak, and strong forces can be described with particle equations or wave equations. They can be described as particles or waves. There's duality.
Mm-hmm.
There's dual nature. Okay. Gravity, we know, has waves because we saw 2 black holes collide or neutron stars collide, and we saw the ripples in space-time. Okay. Those ripples came to our planet. We captured them with our LIGO detector, the Laser Interferometric Gravitational Wave Observatory. Say that 3 times fast. Okay. Yeah. There's one in
LIGO's better.
LIGO, yeah. LIGO's in Louisiana, Hanford, Washington, and there's one in Italy named Virgo. That one's easier. Well, the bottom line is, as those ripples pass through the Earth, we picked them up, and we saw gravitational waves. Half the duality, right? The other half would be gravitational particles, known as gravitons.
Gravitons, yes.
Okay, so this next piece is the weird part. When we look at the other 3 forces, they start and end in our 4 dimensions, X, Y, and Z moving through time. Okay, that's 4 dimensions, X, Y, Z moving through time. Okay, they start and end in this 4-dimensional space. Gravity starts here, if you want to call it that, but doesn't end here. There's something weird about gravity. Right. Gravity actually seems to have the other end somewhere else. And to talk about the other end, we got to talk about what we mean by that. If you think about particles in physics, the electron, the proton, the neutron, okay, the muon, the gluon, and so on. Okay, right? Literally, yeah. You have to think of it a different way, and this brings us to the concept of string theory. Now, string theory is very complex and complicated, multiple dimensions. It makes your head spin and blow up. And now you're just a pile of flesh.
Very much.
However, if you think about it this way, it'll help you make sense. A proton is always vibrating. Okay, so we have a hydrogen atom, and it's always vibrating. The proton's always vibrating, meaning electrons going around, etc. But the proton's always vibrating. So if you stop it at one end of its travel here, and then stop it at the other end of its travel there, what's in between? The path that the proton took. And that's a little path of energy that is the string in the string theory. So instead of thinking of particles, you think of those little paths of energy, little strings.
So everything could be broken down to essentially
a set of strings.
Set of strings vibrating.
That's right. And now why would we talk about that? Because it is within the string theory concepts that this interdimensional travel becomes apparent when you think of the universe in terms of strings. So here's how that works. Within our 4 dimensions, we have these 3 fundamental forces we already know, strong, weak, electromagnetic, and light. Okay. Gravity, now then these have strings. The strings go out and basically they curl around and come back to our same location. Okay. So whenever we talk about the particles and the duality in here, they're vibrating back and forth like a proton. They're vibrating back and forth. The proton doesn't disappear at one end. it vibrates back and forth within our 4 dimensions. We see it doing so. We can tell. Gravity, on the other hand, if there's a particle associated with gravity, we just see one end of it. The other end is not there. Where's the other end of the gravitational particle that is also going to be vibrating, because that seems to be a universal thing? It doesn't exist in our 4 dimensions. You know where it is? It's potentially in a 5th dimension out here. So if that 5th dimension is where it is, then if we can harness the property of gravity as the universe has defined it and shown it to us, although we can't really access it yet with our technology, then we can move into this 5th dimension. And what's interesting about this 5th dimension is that this 5th dimension is highly warped. This is actually a variation of string theory called Randall-Sundrum 1, RS1. And if you can move into this 5th dimension, what you'll find is that the universe, the farther in you go to this highly warped dimension, the farther in you go, the more warped the universe is, the smaller it is around you. So you go in really far, it's very tiny around you. So let's suppose, as we'll just say it this way, say you have to travel 1 foot, okay? And you go into this 5th dimension a tiny little bit. When you come out, that 1 foot that you travel might correspond to 1.5 feet. Okay, so now that same 1 foot go deep into this 5th dimension. When you come out, that same 1 foot could have corresponded to from here to Pluto. Okay, as an example, that's not even mathematically correct. I'm just saying that's the concept. So with this concept, you could theoretically transfer far enough into that 5th dimension, okay, and oscillate back and forth so that you could, in fact, travel the universe, go light years
without,
and all you need, actually, you don't even have thrusters or engines.
I was going to say, you don't even need combustion at that point.
There's nothing. There's no chemical rockets or nothing. What you do is you generate the particles that go around your ship that are gravitons, the ones that belong in that 5th dimension we've been talking about. And if you can do that, your ship will automatically get sucked into this 5th dimension. The more you produce, the farther in you go. Okay. And if you can go far enough into this 5th dimension, okay, you could, like I said, travel the universe. Take it another step. Let's suppose you are here on the Earth and you're an alien creature, right? An alien being. You have a ship that does this. How would you actually operate in practicality? How would that work? Well, you have to generate the particles. How do you generate these particles? These particles have a name in Randall-Sundrum 1 theory. They're identified. They're called Kaluza-Klein gravitons, or KK. Yeah, KK gravitons. Now, if that's true, then if these particles can actually exist, what you'll do, and you just Google it and you'll see it. Okay, if you actually have these Kaluza-Klein particles, you put them around your ship. They live in. Remember, the other half of them lives in this 5th dimension. So as they're generated, they're going to pull the ship into the 5th dimension, and they're surrounding your ship. Now, one of the caveats of these Kaluza-Klein gravitons is that they're 10 to the 16th times more powerful than the gravitons gluing you to your chair right now. Okay, or all of us. So what that means is they're also going to generate what are called micro black holes. And micro black holes, okay, are interesting because they only live for a nanosecond or two. They're not very long lived because all black holes evaporate. Right. They evaporate and they're gone right away, but not before they may have pulled in a molecule of air or whatever, or possibly some of the light coming to it that might go to your eye otherwise. And most importantly, not before they pull in some of the Earth gravitons and prevent them from getting to your ship. So if you surround your ship with enough of these KK gravitons, you don't feel the effects of Earth gravity at all. And this is what explains why ships could possibly be seen as fluttering leaves. Like they move like fluttering leaves without no up or down. Okay, because there's no reason. They don't feel gravity. The Earth gravity doesn't affect them, so that it looks weird to us. Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
Other people report seeing, like, it's almost like it's skipping.
Yes.
Skipping through. That leads me down that path as well. That that sounds like it would be going in and out of the dimension.
Exactly so. And not only that, they're not actually traveling from point A to point B. They're actually traveling from point A just directly to point B without going through the space in between.
Right.
Okay, so now when it looks like they're skipping, what are they doing? They're oscillating back and forth between this fifth dimension and our four dimensions. Now, if they go into that fifth dimension a little bit, and let's say they go in for 3 inches, they might come out 100 feet of where they were, 100 feet ahead of where they were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there's another aspect to this that we'll get to. So, as they go in and out, depending on how far in they go, that will correspond to more distance they travel when they come out. So, it would look like they're here, then here, then here, then here, skipping. Okay. That's what that would look like. And to our eye, we'd see what looks like a continuous object skipping across the sky because we don't know it's disappearing. We can't really see that because it's happening too fast. Okay. So the weird thing is when something goes across the sky, you might see it go like this and then boom, shoots off at a 90-degree angle. It goes, and then weirdly to another angle at a high rate of speed. And you will rightly say no creature could ever withstand those G-forces. And you're right. Not even alien creatures.
Right.
They're not moving at high rates of speed. If you were in their ship, all that would change for you is the outside scenery. It would feel like you feel right now. Wouldn't change. You'd be sitting in the ship and the outside would be shifting because you're oscillating back and forth between that fifth dimension and our four. And all you'd see is a new view for a moment as you're changing positions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now that brings to light, well, okay, Marc, how do you produce these particles? Come on, with the goods, how do you produce those particles? All right, let's talk about how those particles are produced to actually pull you into that fifth dimension. First of all, let's go to CERN overseas. I'm going to CERN. See, it's me going to CERN.
Yes.
Okay, we get to CERN.
There.
Yeah, right. We're running there. That's going to long run, and I need a boat. You get to CERN, and if you go to their website and you look up CERN and Kaluza-Klein gravitons, you're going to find something really amazing. And this is the one of the more interesting parts. The Large Hadron Collider over at CERN has a detector on it called the ATLAS detector, all caps, ATLAS. The ATLAS detector, in part, is looking for, you'll never guess, Kaluza-Klein gravitons. Why? Because they're very, very interesting. Okay. Now, how would those particles be generated? Well, how is CERN generating them? With the Large Hadron Collider. And what is that? It's a particle accelerator.
Particle accelerator, yeah.
Yeah. And particle accelerators are what shape?
Oval?
Yes, circular.
Circular.
Yeah, generally. Yeah, you have linear ones too, but the circular ones are what are used to accelerate the particles to light speed. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or near light speed, right? So the point being, if you're going to have a particle accelerator system, that's the one, okay? If you're going to have a particle accelerator system that is going to generate these particles, you need a power source and a ring, right? You need an accelerator ring. Well, what shape are UFOs generally? There you go. Flying saucers. They're particle accelerators. I'm certain of it. Okay, now, second thing.
You just blew my mind a bit.
And that's why I got a cowboy in Texas gave me his cowboy hat for this talk. Okay, he was blown away. He put it all together. So that outer ring in a UFO is the particle accelerator. The inner part is shielded from the synchrotron radiation that's inevitable. It's a universal tenet, something we can't avoid. You try to take a charged particle and force it into a curve with a magnetic field, it's going to give off synchrotron radiation radially on all directions. Okay, so you can shield yourself from that. Right. You can shield it. Okay, here on Earth, we plant them in the ground. Well, in your UFO, you can't do that, can you? So what you have to do is you have to shield it with some substance, another material. So the center core, where they're sitting and riding, is a place where they're shielded, but the outside may not be. And we've heard many cases where people have touched the UFO, and what happened?
It's very bad.
burns.
burns. I mean, you name it, radiation
Yes.
sickness.
And what kind of radiation do you think it is?
That kind of makes sense now.
Synchrotron radiation from
So
trying to take that particle accelerator, because the outside's not shielded. It doesn't have to be.
for them, it's
They're inside.
Yeah.
They're inside. Outside, they don't care. See, so that's what makes sense. Now, the other thing too is when you look at a UFO and it seems to shimmer and vanish right before your eyes, that's exactly what would happen if Kaluza-Klein gravitons were pulling it into the fifth dimension. It would literally shimmer and vanish from your eyes. That's the physical effect.
Did you read about this recent case out of Colorado?
Which case?
Over the amphitheater.
In Red Rocks?
Yeah, at Red Rock.
I was at Red Rocks. I didn't know about that case. What happened? I missed it.
Early June, employees after the amphitheater closed, they had a concert on June 5th.
Okay.
That night, 13 employees that were working the concert venue, they were at the loading dock. One of them saw it, said, "Guys, what is that?" And they all look over, and by no mistake, they said it was a metallic disc and it was just hovering there. As soon as they turned their attention to it, it tilted, and then it didn't zip off at a tremendous rate of speed, but it was so close that they could make out the details. They said that it looked like it had three porthole, like a 3-story building. It had window looking things.
Okay. I see the story now. Yeah. It's
yeah. And
that's fascinating.
But it didn't just vanish over the horizon or shoot off into space. What they say they saw is that it literally just, as if it was cloaking itself, it just faded out. So it's, again, what you're saying.
Yeah, see, this is, we hear this time and again. So what could this be? This could literally be Kaluza-Klein gravitons in play. Okay. And as of late, and I haven't talked to Avi about this, but Avi Loeb said that he thinks it's possible that aliens are traveling interdimensionally as well. Now, he's the chair of Harvard Astrophysics. Okay. And like I said, he's not saying this because I've said it. I'm sure he knows I've said it. Okay. Because we've talked. But the thing is, for him to come out and say that means that he's seen the evidence himself as well and believes that the math works out for this to be the case. Now, let's go one step further. Now we know that they're accelerators. Now we know that when they use that fifth dimensional travel, they are going to shimmer and vanish. They might even scintillate and change colors. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they might skip across the sky, being in one place then another. Okay. Now, as an astronomer, I can tell you that all those things can be explained from an astronomical phenomena point of view. However, we can't deny that it might also be Kaluza-Klein gravitons in play, and that's fire. Now, there's one lot more thing. You have to generate those particles in your particle accelerator. What's the source? Okay, well, at CERN, they're using a lot of electrical energy to generate a tremendous amount of energy to create these particles and accelerate them, right? But if you're in your spaceship, you're going to need something different. You're going to need some kind of a reactor. And let's cross the Atlantic now and go over to San Francisco to Lawrence Livermore. What has Lawrence Livermore done in the last year that's very important? And it has to do with fusion.
They had the first first stable. It didn't last long, but
it was the first time that in human history that they had a reaction that they could sustain for a period of time. Normally it's bam, okay, we did fusion, yay, everybody celebrate. But now they did
right,
and then they shut it down, right? Because temperatures get so high that so we're not getting out more than we put in. That's what the goal is. Okay, like the sun, we get more energy out than goes in, obviously.
Right.
Okay, so that said, They're working on a stable fusion reactor at some point. Now, let's say they come out with their stable fusion reactor in San Francisco, and let's say that the Large Hadron Collider Atlas detector detects Kaluza-Klein gravitons.
Okay.
Okay, what do you need to create Kaluza-Klein gravitons besides the power sources they use at CERN? A fusion reactor. Hey. So you put one of those inside your ship, okay? And for all we know, they only need to be about this big. Size of a reactor might only need to be the size of a water bottle to power and generate the ring energies to be able to cause this ring to work. Remember, they could be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or more years ahead of us.
Right.
They've been here. They've been here. So that said, they would be able to use this energy source to find their way through the universe in the same way. And they would probably be able to skip across the universe like you skip across the street or whatever, you know, I mean, or like UFOs skip across the sky as we see them. They could do it across the universe as well. Now, if they go in a little bit into that fifth dimension, then they might look like they're moving through our sky and moving at ungodly speeds. And if they keep oscillating rapidly back and forth, well, then they could be on the deep ocean floor and not even feel the effects of the pressure because they're not really there. They're not really in the fifth dimension.
Right there. Bringing back your point, they're neither here nor there.
That's correct. Right. So see, that's kind of where this is going. And I'm probably going to talk about this tonight on Jimmy Church as well. But the point is, that's really something that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And so
this is amazing.
Yeah. And again, I was turned on to this by Robert Schroeder, good friend of mine. He lives in Massachusetts. Okay.
Hey, he's my, so, because I'm in Massachusetts.
Yeah. You're actually up near MIT, I think.
Yep. Correct.
Yep. So you're near Copley Square in that region.
Yep. So wow. So you know the area.
Of course I do.
I've really wanted to talk to Avi because I go into MIT, I go into Harvard, I go to MIT, I go to all of them, Tufts, you name it. I've been in there, and you know, he's someone I'd love to have a conversation with, but I digress. Anyway, so what these Dyson spheres that they're talking about?
Yeah, let's go to that because that's what your original question was.
Right.
Okay.
It doesn't now, with all that you've just talked about, a civilization that's able to do that, to enter the fifth dimension, and use that for travel and for whatever else they may be using it for. I'm sure it's not a one fits, you know, it's not just it doesn't fit one purpose, but would that be a civilization that's using something like a Dyson sphere to harness the energy of their star?
It's possible because, you know, as you know, the concept of Freeman Dyson's Dyson sphere was for a civilization that's advanced enough on the Kardashev scale, like 1 through 4, right? A Kardashev scale civilization would eventually utilize potentially all the energy they could get from their star. Now, in reality, the limitations of materials in the universe are such that in all likelihood, they couldn't put a gigantic sphere around their star because it wouldn't be supportable because of the crushing forces of gravity. Okay. In reality, what we might get is something known as a Dyson swarm. And in that image you just brought up, if you imagine each of those bands was thousands of satellites. Okay. And not actually physical bands of anything, but just thousands of satellites, right? Probably in orbits that stagger so they don't ever collide. Every one of those satellites could obtain energy from the star and efficiently transmit it back to the home planet. So if you imagine that, you could have these massive collecting station up in orbit around your planet or planets in all likelihood. And the energy, although it falls off as the square of the distance, okay, of transmission, would still be substantial if you have a lot of these, if you have an awful lot of these satellites.
Satellites.
Yeah. So the point being, it'd probably be a Dyson swarm that we would see. Now, I was really intrigued when Tabitha announced her discovery. When looking at the Kepler data, Tabitha Boyajian, another astronomer, she
Is that
announced,
is that Tabby star?
yes,
So that's
yes.
can you what I would really want you to do is can you explain why it's so why like how we know it's different or irregular because I have a hard time explaining it, because we know we can calculate the planet. If it was a planet that was dimming or, causing the dimming and brightening,
It'd be cyclic,
it'd be cyclic and we could
be
calculate it.
periodic, and we could calculate it. Yeah.
But they're saying this is not the case with that.
Yeah. Tabby star was a star that she found in the Kepler Space Telescope data. And the star from 100 years ago has shown progressive dimming, at times, really very rapid dimming. And they couldn't understand what that was. And I thought that maybe, other people said, oh, a swarm of comets and all that. No, see, comets they're going to be periodic, and it's not going to be so regular. But I think that in the Tabby star case, what they discovered was potentially that maybe this was a possible interstellar dust cloud between us and there, maybe, who knows. But I thought it was pretty intriguing because it could have meant, in my view, I thought maybe we're looking at potentially a Dyson swarm being constructed. Not a Dyson sphere, but a swarm. And a swarm of satellites, if numerous enough, would block a lot of the light from the star.
So if it was being constructed, that would be the reason for the continual dimming.
Yes, and we would call that a megastructure.
An alien megastructure.
Yeah, if we would characterize it that way. So Tabby star was interesting to me for that reason. I thought that maybe it would be something that
this is Tabby star in the
yeah, that's it.
Okay. And is this more of what you were looking at? Well, no, this is more like solar panels. They looked more like satellites to me in the picture, but those are I
think of discrete little dots.
Yeah.
Okay, discrete little dots, all maybe hundreds of thousands, if not millions of them around the star, orbiting in such a way they don't collide with each other. And you could do that easily enough by having one set of orbits that is at one altitude above the star, another set that's slightly higher, another set slightly higher, and then cross them over. You could actually have almost an infinite number of satellites.
Oh, yeah. This looks much more feasible.
Yeah.
Looking at it, it looks much. Do
you have an image?
Yeah, I'm going to grab it here. Just to show the audience for the visualization. But this would be much more, I could see this as being a lot more.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about, except the problem with that is it shows, like, first of all, satellites have to orbit in what's called a great circle. So you have to have the satellite going, like, if you have a ball, you can't have if you have a ball like this, you can't have a satellite orbiting like this. Okay. Right. It's got to orbit across a great circle. So it has to go basically around the center of the planet and not like above the pole only. Okay. So you'd find that you'd have multiple orbits that are twisted from each other, all going through around the center of the star. So that visualization is incorrect in terms of like a Tabby star or a Dyson swarm. But it's still, you've got to make sure that you have a great circle. You can't have just a little circle going around the pole,
Right. So, but so what would you say to the idea? Because when they're talking about it, these Dyson spheres, they're saying that it's obviously most likely not the case. But would you agree with that? Because they say there's 7 stars. I don't know if that includes Tabby star or if these are in addition, But they recently came out and said that they had found 7 candidates that could be potential Dyson spheres because of their irregularities in their dimming and their brightening. That just couldn't be calculated with planets because it's not cyclical. Are you open to that being a possibility?
Of course.
I
Of
think
course. Because, I mean, if you're an alien civilization and you're working toward acquiring more energy to get out there in the universe, because energy is the name of the game. If you have energy, then that not only dictates what technological level you're at, if you can acquire more energy from your star, then you are going to move up in the Kardashian levels. Obviously, that's certainly not the game they're playing. They don't even know what they are, but they just know they need a lot of energy. So if they do that, okay, then they're going to certainly discover that more energy means more capability, right?
Right.
Who
Right.
wouldn't? And so the more capability means that they would then be able to travel interstellar. And we're not even there yet, obviously. We're about 300 years from being able to say that we could fully get off of fossil fuels and so forth like that and move to fully renewable sources. I wrote a book called The Populated Universe. And in that book, I detail Gulf Stream windmills underwater that could slowly turn and generate very high torque, turn high torque motors that would generate electricity. I detail wave bobbing devices that create energy as they're bobbing in the waves. I mean, there's companies doing that part of it too. And when you go to a fishing, like a harbor, you'll see there's floats that are on. There's like a concrete pier, then there's a float, and it rides up and down with the tide, and it goes down as the tide goes. Well, that area here where the roller is, it's going up and down inexorably all day long, every 12 hours. Okay, that rotation mechanism is a potential location for a high torque motor to work all day and all night, every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and generate some level of energy. And you could generate this from anything where you feel tides. If you had something underwater, okay, as the tide comes in, it's going to bob it around and it's going to generate a little electricity. But then as the tide comes in, this float keeps rising. All right. Then as the tide goes out, the float sinks. Okay. So either way, it can drive a high torque motor. Right. And would generate electricity. Now imagine 500,000 of them on the, out in the currents somewhere, generating out in the middle of nowhere where nobody goes, where nobody cares, where there's no animals that are impacted. And now you see we can actually create a lot of energy. And you don't need these windmills that you sit there and go, oh, they're destroying my image of the Cape. This is how I see windmills offshore. Personally, I think windmills are actually really a fabulous invention, right?
I do too. I like the way they look too. I don't understand why people get all upset about it. But
it has to do with having money. I don't want to see an offshore oil rig. I don't want to see a windmill.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. I'm all for windmills. Just don't put it on my view.
Yeah. Do you know how much I paid for this coastal view? That's
right. Well,
the name of the game.
The value went up because you have access to renewable energy.
Oh, yes. And why do you think it is that, and I hate to go this way, but if a guy like you can think about this and come up with all these ideas, right? Mainly like just ideas that if put to test, right? Could potentially, help us in this, what I call energy crisis, right? So why is it that the US government is seizing so many patents when it has to do with alternative energy?
Oh, that has to do with money and power. Okay, that's just the utilities. I know a guy, a professor who created this really novel windmill, and it was very different from the current thinking. Very compact. You could buy them and put them in your yard and stack them on top of each other because they're little discs. And within each disc, there was little impellers. It would spin this incredible impeller that would actually generate energy, and it would turn into the wind and everything, and you can stack them on top of each other. And here in the state of Connecticut, the electrical utility did a study and found they're extremely efficient and fantastic at generating power. So where are they? Well, the government wanted to buy up the patent. I should say the utility wanted to buy up the patent. And they wanted to do that because if people use the windmills, they wouldn't use their power. So it's about money. So that's why they buy up patents. And guess what? When we start running out of power, they're going to show up. Look, we're knights in shining armor. We have this windmill concept we've been developing.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's that. There's that. And it's actually very practical. In fact, when Connecticut wouldn't play ball with them, he moved to Texas. You know?
Huh. But isn't the patent office... does it matter what state you're in?
No. But Connecticut, the power utilities in Connecticut. Okay.
Oh, they were the ones that were. Okay.
They were yes, and they were being resistant to implementing them and putting them up because they already have a set of infrastructure in place that they're making lots of money with, and they're not going to interrupt that or cause anything to change because they have shareholders. You see, fat cats who don't want to see change. They just want to rake in the money.
Back to the old J.P. Morgan Chase, Tesla, and Ben Franklin debate, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Thomas Edison.
Sorry, Thomas. I don't know why I said Ben Franklin. Thomas Edison. That trio. J.P. Morgan Chase was, if you couldn't put a meter on it, then what good was it to him? Not really. And have you ever? What's your thought? What are your thoughts on Tesla? Do you think that he was a man ahead of his time? And do you think that some of, how the FBI raided and took everything? Do you think there is something fishy there?
Well, first of all, I know a little bit about Tesla because with Doug Trumbull, we did a movie about Tesla up at Niagara Falls, actually, because there's a big statue of Tesla at Niagara Falls, if you've never been there. And he was very instrumental in obviously making a lot of strides in electrical production and generation. And so at the Moses Power Facility, that's 300 feet underground, under the ground there. We were there. It's got Robert Moses facility. And we were in there, and it's like a quarter mile long underground, of tunnels, one tunnel. And all the turbines are overhead from the Niagara River that's coming down and just cascading tons of torrent. So we got to we did a 3D movie actually there with Doug. And the movie was all about Nikola Tesla. And I think that there's a lot of his concepts which probably were buried and probably have not resurfaced because, well, he lived in the old days. Right. Except we have charged particles coming down over our north and south poles every single day from the sun. These charged protons and electrons coming down from the sun are spiraling through our magnetic field, going into the bedrock and transmitting current through our ground. Okay. This is what takes out substations and causes blackouts during high solar activity, is these charged particles coming down into the atmosphere, going into the bedrock, riding up transmission towers.
I'm so glad. So I'm sorry. I'm so glad you brought up the sun in that way. You just kind of sparked something. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fair. So if there's power that's sort of coursing through the ground because of ordinary geophysics and the way the sun works, then why can't we tap that too? It's there all the time. It's always there.
Literally always there.
Yeah. And so if we could figure out a way to tap it properly, Tesla claimed he could. And if we can figure out how to tap it, well, then we could probably use it. Now, obviously, there's geothermal. Geothermal is dependent on magmatic movement underground and stuff, and that's only temporary because magma movements change over time. That's why the Hawaiian Islands look like they are. That's why they're islands.
Right.
And that's why islands are in chains, because the hot spot under the mantle is coming up, making an island right there. But then as that plate moves above the hot spot, the tectonic plate moves above the hot spot, a new island pops up in a different place. Plate moves, new island pops up. Plate moves, new island pops up. And that's why the Hawaiian Islands look the way they do. That's why the volcanic activity is right now on Hilo, which is the main the island of Hawaii. So the island, not because you got Maui and all the others, but because that's the youngest island in the chain, and so it's the most active volcanically. All right. So everywhere you see a chain of islands, you got to think about how they formed, and think that maybe there's a hot spot in the mantle poking up through the crust, so to speak, and making an island right there. And as the plate moves across, another island can pop up, and then another one as it moves up and across and across and keeps going. So that process is something that has been discovered. And so hot spots stayed in the same place, but the tectonic plates move. So harnessing a hot spot would be a short-term thing we could do. We couldn't do it long-term because over hundreds of thousands of years, that hot spot is migrating, because it's not migrating beneath your feet because you're moving above it. So geothermal is great, and so it's temporary. It works for like a number of human lifetimes, but it won't work for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or a million years on a planet.
So it's not sustainable.
It's sustainable only for the time in which you're above the hot spot.
Right,
okay?
right.
You look at the sulfide chimneys in the bottom of the ocean, the black smokers, as they call them, spewing this dark material laden with minerals that these bacteria eat, and around them, the bacteria eat this stuff coming out, and the things that eat the bacteria are all around these beautiful black smoker, hydrogen sulfide chimneys. And so these sulfide chimneys are there because they're above a hot spot on the underneath in the mantle, just poking up and heating the water underneath and making it rise to the surface of the chimney. Well, that migrates because they're on a plate, and that plate moves. And when you look at a sulfide chimney, you can see all the dead ones that preceded it by following along the path of the direction of the tectonic plate. And you can see ancient sulfide chimneys that long died because they migrated away from that hot spot.
Wow.
See, so it's a dynamic Earth too, right? For that reason. So, yeah, I mean, it'll work within a few human lifetimes, maybe a few more. Okay, but over a course of long term, like 500,000 years, no, it's not good enough, right? Not that we care, right? Because you might, but we're thinking of long term longevity of a race, of human race.
Right.
So I think that this type of thing is something that we could utilize in the short term. Now, like Yellowstone, you look at Yellowstone, the Yellowstone caldera is not where it's always been. The Yellowstone caldera has been migrating. Why? Because the North American plate is moving across the hot spot over which the Yellowstone sits. So the Yellowstone caldera, you can see the ancient calderas if you follow the chain. You can actually see them on the overhead maps. And so you should look into that because it's kind of cool.
It is cool. I love all that stuff. I really do.
It's neat.
It's so fascinating to me because, I think a lot of people, they go outside, they step on the ground, right? They drive across whatever, but they don't know that like the earth is, it's on the inside. It's like churning and moving, and we're also spinning at, what's the rate that we're like spinning through the solar system?
Well, we're rotating at 1,000 miles an hour, and it's at the equator. So I think it's kind of cool to see that. That's our rotation rate, and then of course we're moving around the sun, and then the sun's going around the galaxy. Right. Now we've moved around the galaxy in complete revolution around the galaxy about 19 and a half times so far since we were formed 4.5 billion years ago.
Revolution around the galaxy?
Orbit the galaxy. Our sun orbits the galaxy just like all the other stars. And in doing so, it takes us about 230 million years or so to go around the galaxy one time.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, and this includes, I've seen it on the news, a lot of people are saying that the sun is becoming, or is in a period of activity that is concerning because of its the CMEs and the coronal mass ejections, how just unstable our grid is compared to what, like if we were to get hit with something like that.
Yep.
I believe we were there was an event in the 1800s that saw like anything that had electrical or whatever, like literally burned up. I don't know to what degree. I'm probably misquoting all of this, but
I think you're
they,
talking about the Carrington event.
the Carrington event, yes, thank you. But if the Carrington event were to happen today, what would that look like?
Well, in this last solar outburst, we had an event that wasn't as strong as the Carrington event, but it was pretty strong. I had auroras here in Connecticut right over my head, and got video and imagery of them. It's really, really pretty.
In Connecticut?
And yeah, and down in our Arizona Observatory, our all sky camera recorded a video overnight of the auroras occurring in Arizona, and they were seen as far south as Mexico and beyond. So it was actually quite a strong event, but it didn't have the destructive power that was expected. And why that was, I don't really know for sure. I didn't actually look at the details about that particular outburst, but I know that the sun, every 11 years, it goes through what they call the sunspot cycle. And it works like this. When the sun's rotating, okay, on its axis, it rotates like the Earth,
Right.
revolves on its axis. As it's revolving, it has magnetic field lines coming out of the North Pole going into the South Pole, just like the Earth. But it's a very powerful magnetic field. And as it rotates, what will happen is those magnetic field lines along the equator, okay, end up getting dragged out. So the magnetic field line on the equator would look like this, and it gets dragged out a little bit, and then down to the South Pole. Then as it keeps going, it gets really dragged out, okay, and then down to the South Pole. And over time, they wind up on themselves. And when they finally disconnect and go to reconnect, that's around every 11 years. And we get these punctures that appear on the solar surface as they appear. They're like dark spots. They're not really punctures. They're just disconnected field lines that are in the process of reconnecting. And it takes time for all that to happen. And we call those solar storms, and those become the darker sunspots. They're only dark because they're just a little bit lower in temperature than the rest of the surface of the sun.
Right.
So if the surface of the sun is 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, they might be 8,500 or so. And so in comparison, they look black. Okay. So that's just because the rest of the sun is so much hotter.
Right.
Yeah. So, but every 11 years, we get the maximum of the sunspot cycle because of the fact that those magnetic field lines have wound up around each other.
So is it safe to say that it's what the sun is doing right now is normal?
Yeah, because we're approaching a solar maximum.
Okay.
And let me find out. I gotta find out here when the next solar maximum is. It's coming soon, and I don't know why I can't think of it.
That's all right.
It's great. Late 2024 and early
so we're right there.
We're at the beginning of the solar maximum,
Okay.
and it'll be here between 2024 and 2026. So you see, there's time between all these things. It's not like Thursday night at 8 p.m. boom, because that's what people say. That people said, well, with geomagnetic pole shift, Okay, the geomagnetic reversals, as we call it.
Mhm.
Okay, in the real world, geomagnetic reversals are where the Earth's magnetic field, all right, migrates. Like right now, ever since I put telescopes out into the desert, the North Pole has changed position for me. And it's a very gradual thing. It happens over thousands of years. It doesn't happen overnight, like the people with their degrees they get on Google will tell you. Okay, no, they get these immediate sunspot cycles, and we're gonna have this pole shift, and the Earth's gonna flip upside down.
Yeah, I've
Oh
al
god,
oh my god.
that's got to be the worst possible misunderstanding of science I've ever heard in my life. But I'm very nice to people because I can understand that if somebody doesn't know and they ask me that question, they're not the ones that thought of it. They usually watch the video where some
Yes.
other person with no scientific background said it. And of course, what are they going to do? They don't know. So I don't think they're stupid. I just think that they're
Misinformed.
the victim of the Google degree, person, you know.
And that is why I like talking to people like you, because for some of the stuff that I hear, it's just like in this world of UFOs, cover-ups, conspiracies, like it's honestly a lot of it is I want to believe. A
Yeah.
lot of it is. And I find myself a lot coming up against that and saying, like we need skeptics, we need people that will ground us in a way. So that's why I welcome skeptics and skeptical people to this topic.
Mhm.
But I believe that we're being visited. But maybe sometimes like there's lines that I just like with the abduction phenomena and going further saying it's our own military. There are lines I draw in the sand where I won't say them out loud because I don't want to offend any of my audience, but there's a degree to which I believe, and it's I'm not.
Why don't you just Neil deGrasse Tyson? Okay, he sent me a LinkedIn request and I accepted it, and he started following what I'm doing. And when I talk to other people, and I do talks like this, like yours right here,
Mhm.
people find out what I've been doing, and they hear about the concepts that I'm talking about. And so what happens is they end up uh, naturally percolating out into the ether out there, so to speak. And folks like Neil deGrasse Tyson hear this. Now, how do I know this? I know this because I've been told so. Okay. Now, what happened was if you talked to Neil deGrasse Tyson 10 years ago and asked him about the prospect of alien life and here on Earth, he'd say, I see absolutely no evidence of life on Earth. That's ridiculous. Let's focus on the things we need to worry about now, like educating our children, which he's absolutely right about.
He is
Okay.
right. He
I,
is.
I'm on STEM boards. I understand that. Okay. and the thing is, and then he starts following what people like me and other people are doing. And guess what? Now he's asked that same question. Do you think alien life could be here? What does he say now? He says, well, I need more evidence. I need more data.
I need more data.
Okay. Thank you. That's all we're asking for is the call for more data. I want that. Everybody wants that. Now, I've had experiences I can't explain. Okay. I had 3 nights of terror in an old house. I had to move out of it because of this. And something came
I'm sorry.
in to my room and shoved something up my sinus. I was wide awake for this, couldn't do anything about it. And the next day I couldn't breathe out of this sinus. And it was that way for 2 years. And I felt like something had been lodged up there. And the following morning, after 3 nights of this terrifying ordeal, I simply got up and took a shower and went to work as if
What?
it didn't happen. I couldn't breathe out of this, and I just was, well, that's nothing. That's nothing.
It's allergies.
It's allergies. It's
You try
nothing.
to rationalize it.
Well, something made me feel like I didn't have to worry about it, so I didn't. So 2 years later, I went to the doctor, and he looked up there and said, "Holy," and he said the word. He goes, "You've got something huge up there." and he actually was able to extract it in the office, and it was the size of my two thumbs together like this. Okay, it was
What?
big and came out of here. And as I always say, I felt like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall. Get it out, pull it out, yeah, pull it. That's what it felt like to me. So my first comment to him was, "Can I have that?" And he says, "No, no, no. We're gonna send it down to pathology." And I said, "Oh, well, can you have him check the middle of it? Because I'm wondering if maybe they might find a foreign object in there." And he went, "Oh, you mean like a metal splinter that a machinist might get?" Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, sure, we can do that. Why do you ask?" And I told him the story about the 3 nights of terror, blah, 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 and something doing this. And he laughed. He goes, I'm sure it's not aliens. I go, no, I totally agree. I'm sure that was just a dream, which I wasn't sure. And he says, call me in a week. I'll tell you if what it is. And he says, I'm sure it's benign, but let's just call me in a week. Okay. I call him in a week. Hi, it's Marc D'Antonio. Oh, hold on. Doctor has to talk to you. I went, oh no, my head's going to fall off. It's like head cancer. My whole head.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like the
That's
worst
like,
thoughts.
yeah. Yeah. When does a doctor get on the phone? Well, he gets on the phone right away and he says, oh, hi, Mr. D'Antonio. I just want to let you know that it's probably benign. Nothing to worry about. Okay. I went, oh, so you don't have the results? Well, okay. He goes, this is the first, exact words, this is the first time this has happened in my, I forget how many years, I think he said 35 years of my office practice. He goes, but we sent it down to pathology and they can't find it now. Oh. And so I just said, oh, okay, no worries. So it's benign? Yep, no problem, benign. Okay, great. So I get off the phone thinking, well, that's weird. How would that happen? If it was something that was taken or whatever, how would they know? I mean, I don't get it. So a couple years later, I went to him for another thing. And this time I put on my intake sheet, the sheet that says, why are you here today? What's the problem with you? And I put on there my occupation. I said, I do special projects for the Navy. All right. Well, that's kind of a buzzword. And if you're doing special projects, it means that you're doing things with a clearance. And I had a very high clearance for years, for decades. And so I went and put that on there. And because you don't talk about that in public, right?
Right.
And since I'm now out of the program, I can say I had it. That's not a big deal.
Right.
Okay. And so he walks in and he looks at the sheet, he goes, oh, special projects for the Navy, huh? I go, yeah. I said, I was doing, I told him some of the stuff I did that I could mention in the classified world that was now public. And he said, huh. And then he did something I never saw a doctor do ever. He sat up on the exam table next to me. And I'm like, that's awkward.
Whoa.
I'm moving away. Like, that's awkward. And he crosses his legs and he's looking out the window, swinging his legs like we're two kids on a cliff overlooking a pond. Okay. And he goes, I just gave up my top secret clearance this year. I went, oh, what?
Holy shit.
And I said, oh, you're operating on like top secret nasal polyps or something? and he laughed too. And he says, no. He goes, I wasn't always a surgeon, he said. And he got serious. And he told me about a project he was on with the Navy where they cleared 1,600 miles of area around their ship in all directions. It was actually a little atoll out in the Pacific. And they launched a rocket into space. There was a nuclear weapon. And it took down an enemy satellite with an EMP pulse. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. He goes, yeah, I've been doing consulting with them for a long time. Still, he says, well, up until recently, I've left the programs. Wow. So I looked back and I figured out what program he was on. It was a project called Project Starfish. And Project Starfish was a launch of a nuclear weapon into the ionosphere to test how nuclear weapons affect the ions in the upper atmosphere. Yeah, you betcha that's what they were doing. It turns out that they wanted to see the effects on enemy satellites.
What?
And they were successful. Yeah. So you can look it up, Project Starfish.
Oh,
In fact,
I know all about it.
there's a famous photograph taken of Honolulu, thousands of miles away from this thing, and where the blast took place. And it shows Honolulu lit up like it's daytime for a split second when the bomb went off up in the upper atmosphere. So you should see that photo. You should be able to find that photo. It's a pretty famous photo. I had it as a kid. I had that photo to put in a book, that they give you from the Science Foundation or whatever it was that I was in.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know why, but all these weird starfish popped up on Google. Like just random
Yeah.
from movies and stuff. Project Starfish.
Yeah, Project Starfish is you also have to be careful because that's a school thing too. It might have been called. I wonder if it was. Starfish Prime. Look up Starfish Prime.
I say I just got it. Starfish Prime.
Starfish Prime is the one.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And if you look where they took place, you look. It's west of Hawaii, and there you go. And so. And it was they said it was just southwest of Johnston Atoll. Okay, yeah, that's correct because that's where it exploded, just southwest of Johnston Atoll. So they're not lying about that.
Yeah, but so that's what I call is leaving truths out.
Yeah. Oh, and look, it says it was 10 degrees above the horizon as seen from Hawaii at 11 p.m. Hawaii time. Yeah, and it did. It illuminated. There it is. It's right down there. It's if you scroll down. Yeah, you got it. Is that the one? Yeah, that's the one.
I got two here.
Yeah, that's the one. The other one. Yeah, that's Honolulu, illuminated by the blast.
So that a blast happens in the ionosphere.
Yeah, up in space. Yeah, basically in space. Yeah.
Now, were any? Because we know that projects that involve nuclear often have UFO sightings around them. Was this one of those?
Not that I know of. I think this was.
I don't think so either. I just couldn't remember if it was one of the ones that was associated with it.
Yeah.
But that is a very interesting test. So, and that was conducted, and so that's really. So what's the correlation here between?
Yeah. By the way, if you look in that article, I just saw this now for the first time ever. It said Starfish Prime caused an electromagnetic pulse or an EMP that was far larger than expected. No, it wasn't. It was as designed because, as I told you, they were actually trying to affect enemy satellites.
Right.
And it worked.
So, so causing that EMP blast basically fries the enemy satellite.
Yeah. And as you see, it actually caused electrical damage in Hawaii. Okay, from that distance away. So,
what about fallout?
At that altitude, they weren't really too concerned about it. But certainly, there was a cloud of fallout that was drifting around the Earth for some period of time until it got dispersed. There's no doubt.
And that's not a concern.
At the time, it wasn't.
Yeah,
at the time, I mean, they did some really bad things. Here in the U.S., that were tests that were dangerous to people as well.
Right. And I think there's the clear line of when they're willing to go, what the lengths that they're willing to go for, quote unquote, national security. And we're seeing that play out with the UFO topic. And so I know the MUFON symposium is coming up. Are you going?
No, they initially were going to have me there, but I think they ran out of money to bring me there, and so they're not doing it. So I'm not going this year. Next year they want me there, but so they're not doing it this year.
Yeah. So Ron James has said he's presenting 4 new cases. To the and he was on Jimmy Church, and you're going on there tonight. This won't air till Sunday, so this will all be in the past for everybody. But Ron, we were talking about it earlier. Ron showed a picture on air of the Vetted podcast. It turned out not to be anything, but he kind of like. So my question is, and I want to ask you this publicly because I think people should know. Why weren't you consulted as the photography and videography expert?
Oh,
Why?
I don't know. I mean, and I don't hold grudges against anybody. You know, it literally could have slipped his mind. I saw him only a few weeks earlier, so I don't know why he didn't mention anything. He probably would if I mentioned it, and I don't know why he didn't show it to me.
Yeah, I just from an organization like MUFON, it's not, I'm not saying it was a bad look. I'm just saying that it seems like it could have been avoided by just simply talking to you.
Maybe, but I don't sit there going, you should have consulted me.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't play those games, but I give people the flexibility to take these things to wherever they feel comfortable. Ron, Ron and I are friends. We know each other. And so why he didn't consult with me, anybody's guess. I mean, it's possible that he thought, I might not find the same thing that he thinks. And so he was kind of mentally just saying, I don't want to talk to Marc about it. I don't know. It could have been that way. Because maybe he thought I would have poo-pooed it. But on the other hand, I might have also said, Ron, that's genuine.
Right.
So I haven't seen it.
Well, it's not genuine.
It's not. I don't know what happened to it. I don't even know the provenance of the thing.
Yeah, so it's from a model. It was from a kit of a model, and it had something to do. It was a picture in like a some sort of book, and they found the expanded version like within 20 minutes of him showing the picture. So that's just how quick things work now. And I just think that he's in his defense, he did say, I'm glad that they found it. Now we can say, it's not what we thought it was, but it's like, okay, well, why didn't you do that internally before? Like that seems like MUFON. That's what the game is.
Well, Ron James doesn't represent everything in MUFON.
I know
he's not the spokesman. So Ron James is his own person, and we encourage all the people to remain,
individual.
Yeah, of course. And all the chapters are individual. So I'll say that, whatever he wanted to do with it, he's free to do. I mean, there's people that do that too and say, oh, look, I found a UFO and here it is. And it's proven now aliens are here. And then they show a picture of a blurry bird, And when I pull out some of my tools, including a de-blurring tool, you can see the original bird, not perfectly clear, but enough to see that it was a bird.
Right.
And then they're like, well, you changed the data. No, I didn't change the data.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, people don't want to have their claims dashed. They want to believe that what they captured is the real thing. We all do. I understand it. And I think it's a disservice if I was to, I think it's a disservice if I was to just agree with every single thing that came along. That's a disservice to you. It's a disservice to everybody who watches what I do, follows what I do, listens to what I say on these shows. I can't do it, and I can't be bought. That's the other thing. I've had people say to me, look, we'll give you this much money to come on. The show is about UFOs, but we really want you to find UFOs. I said, what if there aren't any? Well, then say they are. No, I'm not doing it. Well, all right, we'll pay you this much more. No, not doing it. I won't. And that, because it only takes one of those times, okay, for you to get, and you're ruined, right?
Ruined.
And you know what? My integrity when it comes to this is more valuable to me than any dollar value. And I just can't do it. I wish I could. I'd be a millionaire. I'd be Stephen Greer. Yes, he's a charlatan. I know it's not a good thing to say. He's a charlatan of the highest order. I caught him in many lies.
I think most people have, unfortunately.
Oh, I got the letter from James Woolsey, the CIA director, saying do not say you briefed the CIA. You didn't brief the CIA. In real life, I did brief the CIA. I was down there to actually do something in Washington. I was down there and I briefed the CIA director. We drew straws so he could go to Langley because none of us wanted to go. Okay, I drew the
Wow.
short straw. Okay, I'll go to Langley.
And
So I know what it's like. You don't just get in. You don't just walk in and say, I want to brief you. You know what happened was he cornered the director and his wife at a dinner party and started
yes,
talking to him about his stuff. All right. And the director said in the letter, you cornered my wife and I at a dinner party. This does not constitute a briefing. You need to go through proper channels for that. This was not that. Please cease and desist. Thank
yes.
you, James Woolsey. And I got the letter around here somewhere.
He hasn't not done that, and he keeps perpetuating that he has briefed every president and all the CIA directors since God knows when, because he started in every story.
Yeah, no one's shutting him down. That's the thing. The government doesn't say, "Well, that's a jerk. I'm not going to shut him down." Whatever.
Right.
You know?
But honestly,
he'll cross the wrong person.
He will. He will. And honestly, Marc, you saying that, it just recertifies my respect for you. I will tell you a little story. While we were shooting my recent movie, it has to do with a lot more of the paranormal themes, more so than the UFO stuff. And there was one point in that movie process where someone was like, oh, we can just, it wasn't part of my, I'm not going to name anyone, but they were basically saying, just lean into it,
Fake it.
Fake. I don't want to say it, but, and my girlfriend was there. I stopped my tracks and I just said, that is not what I'm about. I'm here for the truth. And I I see that now, the people that you hold to the highest degree, right? That you think that they're the cleanest, they have the cleanest bill. They're willing to let their morals go for a monetary value. And it scares me in this field. And I think that's why anytime money is involved with the UFO topic, people get a little weary. For instance, the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is now requiring a donation to the 501c3 in order to remain a founding member. Now, I'm not saying that this is an example, but a lot of people are going to leave that organization now. And when money gets involved, for some reason, there's just seems to be a disconnect with the community. But it's good to know that there are people like you who can't be bought, purchased, or nudged in any certain direction.
Yeah, I have no reason to do it. I don't care about fame and fortune. I don't have an ego to bruise. It's all about ego. People think, oh, look what I'm on TV. You know what? I haven't watched anything I've been on.
Really?
I very few. I mean, if I see it's on, I'll say, oh, I remember that shirt.
Right.
Any more pizza? And it's I'm not impressed with that. My appearance on TV, I don't care about. And that's the thing. People think TV, not just another medium.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people with more YouTube subscribers than people who watch TV. Okay. So I don't think that's a big deal to me. I'm about the passion of my astronomy. I'm about the passion of UFO, truth seeking.
Yes.
And as far as the paranormal goes, that's not as far out of my wheelhouse as you may think, because our show that we did for Discovery Plus called Alien Invasion Hudson Valley, I was a cast member on that show, and we actually did do investigations of a haunted house and in a forest. And one of the things that I realized is that today's paranormal could end up being tomorrow's science. And that's a phrase I use, and I don't have a problem if you want to use it. Okay? Because we recognize it as paranormal. But is it paranormal or just science we don't understand? I'll give you an example. I had brain surgery 30 years ago, and they had to put one in. Just kidding. No, they had to take out
But
something that was killing me, and they did, and I survived. But long-term effects were that I would hear people talking that weren't there, and I would, I know, hear voices in my head, right? But it didn't say kill your dog, kill your dog. No,
right.
it just was like people talking in a room. It's like being in a room full of people all the time. It's happening now, and I just learned to ignore it.
Mhm.
For a period of time, they had me on drugs to try and get rid of these sounds because it was too much. Uh, I
Debilitating.
I abandoned those drugs because the drugs were debilitating, and I wanted to be very very clear. So that was years and years ago. I stopped that, and it was
Wow.
I'm much better for that. So I would hear sounds, and then all of a sudden I started seeing people that weren't there. Now, if you consider the way I saw things, these are things that people would say, "You saw a ghost. You saw a ghost. Oh my, that's a ghost." I was brushing my teeth, and I turned around, and there was a woman. Ah! I dropped the Sonicare toothbrush on the tile floor. It made a loud cracking sound, and this woman was standing there, and she had this. I only saw like the outliney kind of three-dimensional shape because she looked like water without the shine, and didn't have a form. I could see a long flowing outside, so it reminded me of a dress and narrow shoulders. So I thought it
Uh-huh.
looked like a woman just standing there. So I picked up a toothbrush and she was gone. So I thought that was weird. And so another time, coincidentally, in that same location, I saw a guy walk by the door in a sport coat. The reason I knew it was a sport coat, again, I couldn't see it. It had squared off sleeves, squared off shoulders. I thought that looks like a guy in a sport coat. And I looked out of the door and I watched him walk right into the other wall and vanish. I'm
What
like,
the fuck?
exactly. And I'm thinking to myself, my brain is playing tricks on me, man. And so, and
But is it?
I attributed it to the surgery years earlier. This is a latent issue. I felt that my brain was playing back scenes that it had seen at some point in its past. Okay. So that accounted for the voices I was hearing. It's replaying conversations I've heard. That's what I thought was going on. People I saw. So every time I saw something like this, which is, by the way, every day to this day, I would look at it and say, that's just something my brain saw once, and now it's playing it back. It was so powerful. I went to a neurologist and got fitted with this this device on my head and a long string of cables. I looked like one of the Borg, and I had this pack I had to wear, and every time I saw something, I'd push the button. I was pushing it all the time. Oh, here comes another thing. Oh, that looks like a dog. That looks like a mouse. That looks like a person. And I just keep pushing the button because I kept seeing them. They went through this and said, we went to all the events you triggered, and there was absolutely nothing going on in the brain at the time. So your brain is acting normally.
So
Oh,
it's not producing,
right.
is what they're basically saying. It's not
That's right.
active in
That's
producing.
right.
What in
And
the
but I needed that information because as a scientist, what you have to do is you have a hypothesis, so you try to get data. I was prepared to hear them say, yes, this is clearly got some events going on in the brain. The part of this part is lighting up, blah blah blah. Never. Didn't happen. So I went to the step 2, and that was to try and focus on listening to the conversations I'm hearing and see if I could understand words. And after listening very intently, I could. I heard things like, "Are you going to go?" "Yeah, I'm going to go. I'll be there. I'm going to go tomorrow." "Yeah, all right. I'll see you later." "Yeah, all right. Hey, bye. Hey, look at that. That's cool." In other words, daily conversation. Nothing directed at me at all. Nothing. "Hey, Marc, what's going?" No, nothing like that.
nothing?
All just like you're in a room full of people listening and looking and observing at a party and hearing voices. That's what it was. So amid this cacophony of sound, I could isolate a couple of things and hear just ordinary conversation. All right, that's data. So then I'm working on a prop for a movie I was doing with Doug at the studio again. And as I'm building this prop, I'm excited. I'm going to plumbing it for liquid nitrogen so we can have this smoke pouring out of it when it opens up. Really, really cool stuff. And in fact, it was an EMP pulse generator I was building. And so in doing that, I look and I see this thing come walking into my shop, another creature, and it turned around and then laid down. It looked like, I thought that's what it was doing. And it looked like a Pekingese dog, like one of those like yap yap dogs, kind of bouncing gait, you know. And then it turned around and laid down. Then I saw this rhythmic motion, like it was licking itself or something. So I put down the tools and I started walking over to it. And I looked at it on the ground. And as I got over it, I could see the other side of it. Okay, that's data, because if your brain was replaying a projection of something it saw, your brain would have no idea what's on the other
Other
side.
side, it
So
wouldn't be
how
able
would
to.
it know? So I thought that was pretty interesting. So then I decided to do the thing that changed everything, and that is step on it. So I stepped on it with my left foot. When I stepped on it with my left foot, that's when the world changed, because now all of a sudden it recognized I stepped on it. It got up and ran out of my shop. And as it did, it took my foot with it. And my foot was like flying up into the air. Like imagine a bungee cord wrapped around your ankle. Okay. Right around the bottom of your shoe, right where it meets the floor. And imagine somebody running away with that bungee cord. How long could you handle that before your foot snapped up? Okay. So I'm leaning into it to try and prevent my foot from snapping up. And as I'm leaning into it, it got too great. The force took over. Next thing I know, my left leg extends out in front of me, hyperextends my left knee. At the same time, my right leg is now coming up, and I'm falling now in my shop, and this shoulder hits a workbench. Pow! I fall over and hit my head on the concrete floor. All right. Now, that just happened. I said to myself, I got up and I'm going, oh my gosh, that was the coolest. That was incredible. Ow. Ow.
Yeah, you might have a concussion, but
yeah, I went to the hospital immediately. I had to go to the ER immediately, actually, because from that point forward, I couldn't move this arm. And I thought maybe I broke my shoulder or something. And my left leg, the knee was hyperextended. It hurt for a few days, but it got better. So I didn't have to worry about that. Ibuprofen took care of that.
right.
Okay. So when the doctor asked how it happened, I said, I fell. I wasn't going to tell him this. Well, I figured out in my mind, I think I know what happened. Okay. And I coined a phrase, I think, and I just sent me on a study of parallel universes. Okay. I started looking into parallel universes and found that there's actually a surprising amount of papers written in the Astrophysical Journal, in Nature, and in these other periodic documents that talk about parallel universes. And one of them talks about the fact that we have these concurrent shells of universes that were all commingled, and sometimes they will punch into the other one. Like there's my knuckle coming up through.
Right.
That where it comes through, that's the universe down here poking into this universe up here. And wherever that happens, that particular location right there is where someone could see something if they were there.
Right.
And maybe that's what we're calling ghosts. Okay. Wow. It doesn't mean that that's all it is. It means that maybe that's what we're calling it. So I came up with this term, a PUI, parallel universe incursion. And these parallel universe incursions would actually make sense. Okay. And I don't just say things without data, and I got some data to tell you about. Okay. These make sense because if there's a parallel universe and there's other life forms that make their way across the dimensions into ours, they don't know they're here. They may see weird things themselves and not know what they're seeing. Right. Okay. So if that parallel universe incursion occurs, it's possible that by stepping on that thing that then got up and ran away because it felt like it was stepped on, constitutes rudimentary communication across universes. Think about that. That's weird. Now, that could also be considered paranormal and ghost hunting, wouldn't it? You could do that. Maybe some of the same tools can dig out some of the data to show us what's really going on there. Maybe. So that said, I began to think that this was a parallel universe incursion, and that maybe, crazy as it sounds, and you just can't deny the possibility. That's all I'm asking you to think about. You can't deny the possibility. Maybe this was something where the object that was here was from a different universe. a different set of dimensions. And if that's the case, that made sense to me. And I'll tell you why it made sense. When we look at the Big Bang and the theory about how the universe began, we figure there's got to be a certain amount of mass to make up this primordial fireball. Otherwise, it couldn't have been a fireball. Well, that amount of mass doesn't exist. We have missing mass. We don't know where it is. Well, what if our bang was more of a pop, a part of a bigger
A
Big
larger
Bang,
series.
or another one, another Big Bang? And what if there's universes out there that are arranged? I heard the soap suds theory, concentric bubbles. I mean, any one of those theories could be interesting. At the border where those things meet, you could see something potentially. So it's
also-
far out. It's far out. Can't prove it.
Could it also, it sounds like it also could account for some of these cryptid sightings.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not arrogant. I'm not going to be an arrogant science guy and say, "Oh, sure, that's stupid." I'm not going to do that, because
What if it's just another universe bleeding over?
Yeah, after all I've seen and experienced, I would have to say that I've gone from being very regimented in my thinking to being wide open because I had to be, because otherwise you're lying to yourself. And I won't lie. I mean, I think that it's possible that there could be some connections. I don't believe everything is real that people talk about. No, I don't believe that chupacabras exist. Okay, not the way they're defined, but maybe it's an animal that has yet to be discovered. There's plenty of those out there, and I think that maybe Bigfoot could be one of them. I've offered my infrared drones to. I have one infrared drone to the Bigfoot people, all over the country. And not one person has taken me up on the offer to do an infrared Bigfoot hunt. Why?
Well,
Are they afraid to
it.
find out the answer? What's the deal?
I'll do it. I'll take you up on that offer.
Well, we gotta do a Bigfoot run somewhere.
Let's do it, man. I'm serious. Wow. So, do you think that there's a possibility that you
Absolutely not? No, I'm just kidding.
that you are seeing that whatever happened, procedurally, whatever, something gave you the ability to see more than I can.
I don't know. I don't think I'm special. I think that I just became aware because of the fact that I had an experience that I actually started to probe and pay attention to, and I didn't have any scientific instrumentation at all to start probing this lady in my bathroom, the guy in the suit and the dog. I didn't have any of that, but I just started to formulate a theory. And it doesn't mean that I have any more capability. I don't think of myself as special in any way. I think that everybody has the ability to do what other people do and experience. I think they have the ability. It's just that for whatever reason, their lives and the things they do get in the way. And, I'm running my own business. I'm at home 24/7 when I'm not traveling, which is also a lot. It seems.
A good amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, I'm working to make ends meet just like everybody else, but I'm alone. I'm alone now. I mean, there's no one here. So the bottom line is I get a chance to meditate and think about things. And does that make me more of a target for these things? I can't answer that yes or no. I don't know what the answer is. So
interesting.
It's weird stuff, granted. But I do know that, as soon as you stop wondering what's going on out there, you're done. You got to keep pushing. That's what I do.
Yeah. Absolutely, my friend. And listen, I'm not going to lie. That investigate the place we went when we were filming where the person told me to lean into it, so to say. There was stuff that happened while filming that I can't explain. And that is good enough for me. it brought me to the line of saying, okay, I really do think there's something here. And, these hot spots, off the northern tip of Catalina, Skinwalker Ranch, the Bridgewater Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle. Do you think that these spots may be places of incursion, or where let's say the lines between universes blur a little?
Well, I was just talking to Darcy Ware yesterday. He did Transmedium, that USO
Yes,
show,
fantastic.
and I was telling him about the Kitsakawa Maru story, where a Japanese freighter crew watched objects moving in and out of the water at this latitude and longitude, which they gave, and that latitude and longitude corresponds exactly to the very end of the Marianas Trench. All right. Interesting, right? And as far as experiences that occur while filming, we were doing Alien Invasion Hudson Valley over in New York State. And we were supposed to go to a place called Nuclear Lake. And we didn't go because the guy that was supposed to take us was, he says, was approached by Men in Black and told if he goes there, he's going to get killed. Okay. And I know this guy very well, and he doesn't lie. So something happened that spooked him, and he wouldn't go to that lake, and that was supposed to be in the production. But anyway,
well, that's yeah.
That alone is something crazy.
I would just want to pause. Is this a person you trust?
Of course. I've known him for years.
And he was spooked enough to not go there to include it in the production.
Absolutely.
That says
absolutely.
Something. That
he wouldn't do it, and he wouldn't. Didn't matter what the money was. He wasn't going to bring people there because his life was worth more. That's how he looked at it. And so he was afraid. Okay, that's fine, and I totally understand and agree with his resolve not to go. But while filming this haunted house, the homeowner was telling us about this creature that apparently lives in the house, and she said, "Don't say the name, because if you say the name, bad things happen." And in my head, and I know this woman very well, I've known her for years, and I said, "Oh, that's crazy! Come on!"
Right.
And I said the name over and over in my head. Okay, I said, "Yeah, what's going to happen?" And as soon as I said that, and this is on camera, okay, my feet got frozen to the floor, right in place. I couldn't move. Ben Hansen was there because Ben was another cast member on the show. And I said, "Ben, I can't move. I can't move, Ben." And he comes over, "Marc, what's wrong?" And we're trying to move me. My feet aren't moving. And I started feeling tingling going up the top of my feet, into my calves, up my knees, thighs, pelvis, all the way up. And when it got to here, and I literally felt like a head, a disembodied head. In my head, I said, "Okay, I believe you." And it all went away and I could move again. Absolute truth. Okay. That's on film. That I don't remember, but I think that's actually in the show. And I did not want that to be in the show because I was panicked. I was panicked.
And you didn't want it. Yeah. You're like, no.
I don't want that in the show because people just gonna,
vulnerable.
You know why? Because people are just going to believe that it was a stunt.
Like you did it for the production.
And I don't ever sell out for that shit. Excuse me.
No, absolutely.
So I was actually really taken aback by that. So I have obviously had weird things happen too, and I know that it's a very strange world. There's a lot going on out there that we do not understand.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit there and say it's not happening.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with some of the mainstream academics is, or let's say the public faces of science, and that is that sometimes it seems that they live in this black and white world, and
well, keep in mind where that's coming from. Okay, I don't have a university affiliation I have to protect. I don't have shareholders I have to protect. I don't have endowments that I have to protect. When you have that going for you, folks I don't have a salary that isn't generated by my own work that I have to protect. So I'm independent. And so I don't have to worry about somebody firing me. I'd have to fire me. I'm the guy to fire me. Okay. So don't point at me. I'm not fired. That was a close. Hey, that was a close one, pal. So anyway, so that said, I think it gives you a little bit more willingness to jump in with both feet when you're pulling your own strings and no one's pulling your strings. So that's what I say.
It's funny, right? Pulling our
Yeah.
strings.
Yeah, and people in, you know, not in string theory, but you know what I mean.
That's what I
People,
mean. No, that's what I was circling
I
back.
know. People in science are beholding to other people that put them there, you know, in some ways. And so when that happens, you've got to be really careful what you say and what you're willing to admit publicly, and what you think privately might be a different thing. So, and I've seen that with some of the people in science.
Well,
Ivy Loeb certainly took that on. Neil deGrasse actually finally took that on. So obviously things are changing.
the tide is a changing, and I see it happening. And I think it is, you know, I think it, do you think there's a possibility that there is some sort of controlled disclosure underway?
I don't know if that's true. I think that what we saw in the congressional hearing was absolutely incredible. I think that that was a sure sign that something good is coming out now. When you hear someone say, we have bodies, a guy from the CIA, we have occupants. Okay. Can you tell us about them? Not in an open hearing. We have to do in a classified briefing. And then they have the classified briefing, and then senators and congresspeople who are in there come out, and when they're asked about it, say, and you see the look on their face, and it's like, yeah, it's crazier than I realized, basically. You know, that tells you something right there, you know. So they were blown away. The ties are, you know, disheveled. It's like, you know, they had a little reckoning to deal with themselves, you know, about the reality of their world.
Right. And I think for a lot of people in government, especially the older folk, no, not to generalize, but I think they have very hard faith, some of them. Hey, it's Tyler, host of Total Disclosure. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I just want to remind you guys that you can become members and or send super chats, super thanks, and help support the show. You can also check out our new merch shop that does include Total Disclosure merchandise now. It's so worth it, and there's many denominations you can choose from $1.99 to $2.99, all the way up to $9.99. Guys, we hope to hear from you soon. If you want to reach out to the show, feel free to DM me on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram. And this can challenge aspects of that. I don't see why it does, but nonetheless, it does. So, I mean, I guess my question would be that, you know, how can, what advice would you give to like a young scientist who's interested in pursuing a career in astronomy, but also the search for extraterrestrial life? And, you know, I know we know SETI exists, but
yeah, well, extraterrestrial life, that's my specialty.
Right.
My book is The Populated Universe, talks about the populated universe. It talks about why the universe is probably a fundamental haven for life and not the opposite. And that has to do with lots of things, which I outline in the book, you know, carbon, number 4 in the elemental abundance in the universe. We're made of carbon. We need oxygen to breathe. Oxygen fills our atmosphere, sets out like a blazing blue beacon into the universe. And any civilization worth its salt that's carbon-based is going to look for other carbon-based life like we're doing. And so it's going to look for oxygenated atmospheres like we have, because we need that to survive. It's going to find oxygen in our planet. It stands out like a sore thumb. I know Stephen Hawking said, let's keep out of sight. Let's not, get out there into the galactic arena. We already have. 2.5 billion years ago, oxygen started building up in our atmosphere in what's called it was a great oxidation event, the GOE. And that happened a lot quicker than people realized in science for a long time. And that oxygenation was from cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, plankton, phytoplankton. And that meant that there was life in our oceans. And any civilization worth its salt is going to look at this planet and say, there's oxygen in the atmosphere, and it's staying there. Oxygen that is in an atmosphere would tend to dive out of the atmosphere and bond with all kinds of compounds because oxygen oxidizes.
Oxidizes, yes.
Yeah. And so it would leave the atmosphere very, very quickly in relative terms. And so if it stays there for 1,000 years or 10,000 years or 100,000 years, or if you see a planet that shows evidence that it's had oxygen for a long, long time, you can be fairly certain that oxygen was created by life, because it's life that creates oxygen. It's the phytoplankton.
Right.
And the forests, of course. But actually, the plankton are 87% of the oxygen on our planet. Effectively.
Yeah, that was something that I recently was told, and I was blown away. So what is the great oxidation event? I've never heard that term. Is that when our atmosphere was essentially created?
No, the atmosphere was already there, and the influx of oxygen into the atmosphere occurred 2.5 billion years ago, and the oxygen levels that we have today were not what they had then, but the oxygen started to increase at an exponential rate, which was, I see you have gone into a black hole.
Did you see that?
Yes, you're in a black hole right now.
What is going on? Oh my God, I just got cut out.
That's funny.
You're going to go full screen for a minute while I fix that.
That's fine. So the great oxidation event was where oxygen built up in our atmosphere. And that started around 2.5 billion years ago. And the oxygen levels fluctuated over time. Carbon dioxide levels have fluctuated over time. I have a record actually going back 500 million years of all the levels of carbon dioxide and oxygen and other elements in our atmosphere. And everything's a major fluctuation, way up high, way down low, way up high, way down low. So seeing carbon dioxide climb right now, it doesn't really bother me so much. I know that humans are affecting our planet, but I think that the level to which we affect them has been grossly overstated, because we think we're doing more to the planet than the Earth itself can do. Like when the BP oil spill occurred, I was talking to one of the CEOs of the major oil company. I was actually on the phone with him every day. Actually, he called me every day to give me a report on the spill. Why? I guess he wanted a sympathetic ear from someone who believed they could handle the fix. I guess I don't know what it was, but when Charles would call me, he would say, "This is what we're doing. This is what's happening." And I said, "Well, you got a lot of methane that's seeping out into the ocean there, Charles." He goes, "Yeah, I know." I said, and he goes, "And they're saying it's going to create a giant dead spot in the Gulf of Mexico." And I said to him, "Charles, actually, that may not be true, but please don't take my word for this, okay? You have to let it play out because you have no choice right now. But when you have something like this happen, there's a lot of bacteria in the ocean that will rise to the occasion and rise to start consuming that methane. So I don't suspect that you're going to see a major dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, like all the environmentalists are claiming." And I said, "I'm not saying that because I'm on the side of big oil," and he laughed, right? I said, "But I'm saying that because I think it's the scientific truth." And guess what? The methane bloom disappeared in a period of a month, right? And away it went. And why? Because the methane-eating bacteria bloomed themselves and ate it all up, and then reduced back to their normal numbers.
Right.
So in other words, the Earth has a way of dealing with this stuff. It's been dealing with it. We have, and when he talked about the millions of gallons getting into the water, I said, well, each year there's hundreds of millions of gallons seeping into the oceans in natural seeps, because the ocean floor is cracked and fissured and oil seeps up into the ocean.
Where we get the oil from the Earth.
Yeah. So the question is,
yeah,
that's right. So why is it that people think that their oceans are so clean and wonderful when we have all these natural seeps of 100 million gallons a year, roughly? I don't remember the exact number.
Wow, that's a lot.
But yeah, you have to look that up. But they're called natural seeps, SEEP. And the natural seep is something that will put all this oil into the water. So how come when you go to the ocean, you don't come out and see an oil sheen on your skin? How come you don't look out in the ocean and see an oil slick, a rainbow slick?
Right.
Because the Earth has a way of dealing with these. It always has.
So magnificent.
It's on the surface. It's on the surface, yes. Then it ends up colliding and accreting onto particles that get heavy, fall down to the bottom. They roll around on the bottom like tar balls and get reabsorbed into the ocean floor. Okay. And then methane-eating bacteria get loose and hydrocarbon-eating bacteria get loose and start plowing away and eating at the oil as well. So there's all kinds of things that happen naturally to offset some of these things that occur. It's natural that the Earth was doing it. In other words, a niche is opening up. Ooh, more oil, more methane. Right. Oh, it's a niche for a kind of life that likes methane.
Yeah.
And boom, out comes a life, and boom, there goes the oil, and there goes the methane, rather. Wow. So the Earth has a way of self-regulating, and that's something that it goes unnoticed, unstated many times, and that really bothers me, because they should state that and be very clear about it.
The Earth is almost. Would you? I hate to say this in a way, or put you on a spot. It seems like the Earth is almost a living creature in itself.
Well, there's the Gaia hypothesis where the Earth is alive. And it certainly acts like something that's responsive. When something occurs, like an oil spill, the Earth has a way of cleaning it up. Not in a way that we understand as life would do it, but in a way that seems to be a process.
Right.
Created by the plethora of life on this planet and the different types of life that eat different things.
Yeah,
and that's the
checks
kind of
and balance.
The Earth is a big check and balance machine.
It's amazing. Right. It's amazing. And I don't, probably be wrapping up in a couple of minutes, and I could talk to you all day, but
you have.
Yeah. People tend to think the religious folk, they're like, oh, I wanted to get into I want to get into heaven, and listen, that's amazing. That is amazing. Do you, boo? But I don't think people truly realize what a paradise that we live on right now. That people take for granted.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And is that why? And is that why? Is are humans the reason UFOs are here, or is Earth the reason UFOs are here?
I believe Earth is the reason, and I'll tell you why. Because, as I said, I'm a carbon bigot. That's right. You're looking at someone who's prejudiced. I am. Carbon is the thing. I think that life in the universe is, by and large, going to be carbon-based. Carbon is the only element in the periodic table with the flexibility to bond with and break bonds with more things than any other element, even silicon. People say, oh, silicon-based life. No. Silicon is a maker of crystal lattices many times, and it's a very robust bond maker, not a really good bond breaker. In fact, you can tell all your friends next time you go to the beach, hey, you're walking on mostly gas? Huh? Yeah. Silicon dioxide, 1 silicon atom and 2 oxygen atoms. Hey, by atom count, you're walking on mostly gas, pal. Hey, see you later.
Whoa.
Right? Yeah, that's true. So the bottom line is that silicon dioxide and things like that, you can break those bonds, okay, by burning it under high temperature. But there's not many chemicals that can disassociate a grain of sand into its particles, right? So into atoms. So the original atoms. So, you got to look at the robustness of the bonding process. And silicon is a great bonder. It loves to make bonds, and it doesn't like to let them go. Okay. So, and silicon's right below carbon in that column in the periodic table. Carbon, right? Number 6. Yeah. And down you have silicon. Well, carbon, silicon, and what's below and above, those elements below carbon are the most like elements to each other that could do what carbon does. That's what the columns kind of mean. So you would think the
Oh,
next most likely element that could do what carbon does is right below it, and that's silicon. And that's why people say, what about silicon life? Because of this property. But it's a night and day difference. Silicon doesn't make nearly as many bonds as carbon can. And your body right now is making and breaking carbon bonds as we speak by the thousands and thousands and billions. Okay. So if you had silicon in you, it would just sit there.
right. It wouldn't be able to break it. They would make
Right.
it, but it wouldn't break it.
Right. It might end up in your kidney and you pass it as a kidney stone, or I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably a different thing, but still, it's a joke.
Right.
But the bottom line is silicon would be inert to your body. It wouldn't be something that you could utilize in any way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Then that's, oh, God.
I know. Poof, right. That's how it works.
It's really, every time I have a conversation with you, man, it's like
Well,
that.
we went from going about how to travel from here to there in a heartbeat to the deep ocean to oil to the congressional hearings
To
uh,
your
to my experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Covered a lot.
yeah, there's a lot there, man. This is like 6
So,
shows.
yeah, and well, what I want to start doing with the show and with YouTube specifically, because the audio platforms we do very well with. It's YouTube that we have a problem with, and it's frustrating. But what I want to do is I want to do more profiles on people in ufology, and you're in Connecticut, you're really close.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk to you more about that and what my plans are, because I've already talked to other people in MUFON like Kathleen Martin, Earl Grey Anderson, and doing short, hour-long profiles on them and what they've contributed and their story in ufology. And I think it'd be really cool to get. You've done so much, and I don't think people give you enough credit. And
Well, I don't sit there and crow about it. I mean,
yeah,
I don't tell you about. I mean, we didn't even talk about the missing time I had when I was like 9 or 10 years old.
right.
And that's what got me into astronomy. There's a whole path there. It's a lot of circuitous bends.
Yeah,
that life takes you through.
and each person, the way they get here to this field, to this topic, to this community, whatever you want to call it, it amazes me.
Yeah.
Because it's something that it's like no other. When you get entered into it's not like something else where you can just walk away from it, because there's just so many questions, and like the existential type of questions. And it's just, I don't know, whatever gets a person to start thinking openly, in my book, is a good thing. So, Marc, it's always great to have a conversation with you. I know you got the Jimmy Church gig tonight, so I don't want to keep you too much longer.
No worries. Thanks, man. It was good to talk to you.
It's always good to talk to you. And like I said, we're going to talk, because first off, I really do want to do that profile. But what do you got going on in the future, or upcoming future? Anything that you want to shout out?
I just did a whole bunch of string of conferences, and right now my summer is relatively clear. I am teaching a course on 3D printing lunar craters later on this month, and it's going to be in place. It's going to be with 3D printers around me. We're going to be at a special lab doing that. That's going to be cool. And I'm also going to teach cratering, how craters work, and we're going to actually make craters, by using large objects being thrown into simulated lunar soil that I've made. So it's actually a pretty cool process.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll see crater rays made and understand. You can do all kinds of calculations too to figure out the mass of the object that struck. There's all kinds of cool things we could do. But then we're gonna look at 3D prints of craters, because I make 3D prints. I've got a very high-end 3D printer here. It's right there. Okay, it's
Okay.
made by Anycubic. It's an SLA DLP printer, and it prints out things as smooth as this. And you take them off the machine, and they're already done. No cleanup. Well, some cleanup depending on what you're doing.
Right.
So really cool. So,
So
so we're going to
amazing.
be doing a lot of that. I've got filament printers too. There's one over on the other side of my office right there. That's a filament printer, the Taz 6 by Lulzbot. As you can see, I'm in my ship. That's my office. Okay. Yeah.
That's actually
And
really cool.
yeah. Well, I work for the Navy a lot. So,
It was a good
um,
theme. Yeah.
yeah, the whole office is, I got a
Yeah.
hatch. You got a hatch to get in. You turn the hatch and get in. You know? But,
So, oh my God, I got so much. So,
yeah,
yeah,
that's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
that's amazing. That is amazing. And so, and you do Sky Tour.
Yeah, Skytour live stream is our live observatory, and it's a remote observatory. It's 2,600 miles away from me. We have another one going in that will be 2,400 miles away from me, down in Benson, Arizona. We already got the equipment. We've broken ground, so we're going to be installing that one in the next few months. But last night, for instance, we did a sky tour. We started at 11:30 and went till about 2 a.m. Yeah, and I had people from all over the world watching.
And I
Yeah.
highly recommend everyone head over to that YouTube channel and
Yeah.
subscribe. It's amazing. And your work with MUFON again, just more credit to you, Marc. Absolutely a wonderful show, and definitely want to work with you on something in the future.
I'm sure we'll figure it out, Ty.
All right, brother. So for everyone out there, make sure to like, share, subscribe. And if you're listening on all those great podcast platforms, leave a review. It's free. And, it really helps me. So thank you. And we can reach a really broader audience just with reviews. You don't
Yeah,
know
what
how.
he said. What he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, exactly. And then everyone who wants to get early access to any of the things that we're doing, you can become a member on YouTube or Patreon for as low as a price, a cup of coffee a month. After 12 months consecutive membership, get a gift. We have actually a couple gifts to give out. And I want to say a special thank you to BioMind, which is going to continue to be our main sponsor for season 2. Marc, we will talk soon. Everyone out there in the podcast world, you know what it is. We'll see you next time.